Hey, what's up guys? Trevor with Shadow Systems, Technical Tuesday, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our frame and what are the features of our frame that help shooters control recoil. The foundational design philosophy of our company is we want our guns to be extremely shootable. We want them to, be easy to get hits with at close range, under stress, rapid follow-up shots, easy to track the front sight, easy to get hits. It's all about shootability, okay? There's some great guns out there that are wonderfully engineered and, survive all the static testing and freezing and dropping and whatever, but are they really that shootable? Are they easy to get hits with, or do people always end up modifying them, right? That's the question. With our gun, you should never have to modify anything, okay? You should never have to change anything or spend any money, because the gun's going to come to you out of the box extremely shootable, ready to go with all the good features. That's our concept, right? That's what we want to give you. And the frame is a huge part of that. The frame is a huge part of what makes this gun like that. All right, so let's actually talk about the frame. All right, there are many elements to a pistol frame that your hand is interfacing with, and there's little decisions that you can make along the way. About how to contour it and where to put the texture and things like that will all play into that shooter's experience of firing and controlling recoil. Okay, so I'm going to go through the list of things that we've thought about and that we've done to make the frames easy to shoot. All right, the first is going to be texture. Okay, and a lot can be accomplished with texture, and that's why so many guns out there in the market are stippled, right? We put texture in a lot of places on the frame. We put textured patches in places that, frankly, some manufacturers don't put them, and it's all about giving it a very custom, very aggressive feel without being so rough that it's abrading your clothing or your skin. Okay, so we have a number of areas that are textured. Obviously the backstrap, of course, okay? And you can see the texture is pretty aggressive, but nothing crazy, all right? Nice big grip panel, front strap. We also put a patch of texture on the front of the trigger guard. There are still some people who shoot that way with, there are some actually who put their thumb all the way out there, but who will put their index finger there, and they benefit from that. A lot of the other companies that will have a textured location there, they'll just have lines because it's easier to open the mold that way and just create those lines in the same line of draw. We actually have a separate component that comes in and textures that like a custom gun. So textured panels all over the gun, on the front of the grip strap, or on the front of the trigger guard, the front strap, the back strap, the side panels, and then also right here. So here we add a textured panel on each side, along with a ledge right there for your thumb, okay? So, the modern technique of kind of thumbs forward, right? This gives your thumb a really wonderful engagement point on the frame to help control recoil, okay? Now, I'll just go ahead and answer this question. Sometimes people say, well, why didn't you make it bigger? Or, I wish there was more of a ledge or something there. And our response to that is, we did try to stay within an envelope that would fit in all common Glock style holsters. So a lot of people have those holsters already. There's a million of them out there, and we want you to have all those to choose from. So we did have to think about how wide the frame was getting there, and I think we found a really great kind of balance between good holster fit and then also having an extra place to control recoil on the gun. All right, so texture all over the gun, and the right kind of texture, not so aggressive that you're abrading your skin or your clothing, just the right amount of texture, all right? You'll also notice that these panels go around the contours of the frame a little farther than most, around the curve. Okay, so there was a technology that we used in this mold, or in all of our molds really, to texture really far around those radiuses. You don't normally see that. You'll see like kind of more stick-on flat panels on polymer frames. And so we did that to create more of that custom wraparound kind of textured feel. Okay, so I already actually mentioned it, but I'm just going to go ahead and say the recoil control ledge. I can't spell today. L-E-D-G-E. Boy, didn't I do a good job writing that? All right, recoil control ledge. So that's on either side of the frame, like I showed you, something for your thumb to hold on to. All right. Next would be the undercuts, okay? So this was a very common modification people would do on guns, and it's very effective. And what it does is it lowers the gun in your hand a little bit. If you really think about it, you know, this, your middle finger is what is underneath the trigger guard, okay? And it becomes kind of the limit of advance for the gun to go down into your hand on this side. On the rear, it's the Beavertail. On the front, it's the index or the middle finger. And so you want to try to get this gun, again, as low in your hand as possible to help control recoil. And so to facilitate that, there's some meat taken off the bottom of the trigger guard. That's why the bottom of the trigger guard is so skinny, okay? It's all about getting the gun as low as possible. Same for your support hand. The higher your support hand can get, the more it can control the recoil. And so that's why we have double undercut. An undercut here for your support hand and a really nice deep undercut, as deep as you can go for your firing hand. Okay, that's in the front strap. On the backstrap, we have the Beavertail. Okay, so I call this the intelligently designed Beavertail. And what I mean by that is there are some guns out there that have really big Beavertails that aren't really doing a whole lot for you besides preventing slide bite. So the first reason to have a big Beavertail is that for guys with enormous hands, you know, that gun, when it cycles, can, if their hand were to creep up over the Beavertail, they get the railroad tracks cut into their hand by the slide. It's painful. And so we wanted to, you know, obviously protect against that. And that's what most people are kind of doing with the big Beavertail. Well, the other thing we wanted to do, though, was we wanted to contour it in such a way that it helps drive your hand onto the gun and also eliminate some of the bulkiness that you commonly see with the Beavertail. So you'll a lot of times, you know, if you look at the profile of our Beavertail, it's sort of got the corners knocked off, right? So that means your hand can start to roll up around the sides of it without getting in the way of the slide. It also means that you don't have quite the same bulk, so it doesn't quite print as much as a big kind of goofy, huge Beavertail. And then also this upswept nature of it, we actually swept it toward the frame a little bit. If you look at it, the Beavertail is actually canted toward the slide a tiny bit. That helps you drive your hand onto the gun when you're drawing. So you're coming out of the holster fast. You want to have kind of a funneling effect for the web of your hand to slide over the back of the Beavertail. And so that just gives you a little tiny bit more forgiveness when you're going for the gun. So that's my intelligently designed Beavertail talk, but really this Beavertail helps prevent slide bite, helps get your hand on the gun, and because we took some meat out from underneath it, it also sits really, really low. And like I said, low in the hand equals recoil control, so this helps get the gun super duper low. All right? Okay. I'm going to talk about a couple frame features that aren't necessarily recoil control, but are, you know, helpful in shooting. If you're using good recoil control techniques, hand high on the gun, around the slide stop lever, you'll see we have a pretty big curtain. It stands reasonably tall, okay, and it goes on all sides of it. Okay, so I'm going to call that the slide release curtain. All right, what does that do? Well, you know, one of the things we heard early on with the old MR918 pistol is we had cases of guys getting so high on the gun, particularly with their non-firing hand, that, you know, they would end up kind of lifting up on the slide release lever and prematurely locking the slide to the rear, or they might just creep up so high that they just sort of would hold it down. So even though the last round had fired, the gun would cycle, and because they were kind of holding down the slide lever, it wouldn't lock to the rear. So we created this little contour, which gets basically a bigger guard around the slide release lever, so that way you're less likely to creep up on top of it and either push it up or hold it down. So that is the slide release curtain, and that's why it's there. Okay. All right. The last one I'll mention is the magazine well. Okay. This is something people, I don't know that they really appreciate it until they experience it. So the guns all come with a magazine well, okay? So you have an internal magazine well that's actually reasonably well flared, pretty nice, honestly. And it you know, gives you a good start for a quick magazine change. But if you want a little more, you know, a funnel for a quick reload, if you're shooting competitively or you just like that, we include a magazine well, okay? So this comes with the gun. Well, it has honestly, in my opinion, an almost more important benefit than just helping with reloads. it also creates that great big wonderful hook right there, okay? And so we did that on purpose. So when your gun is seated in your hand, and this one isn't pinned in place, there's a pin that holds it in place when you actually install it. So it's just kind of resting here. Hopefully it doesn't pop off. But when you're sitting, when your hand is on the gun, if you have kind of an average sized hand, you'll end up almost being kind of squeezed and compressed by the top edge of that magazine well, and it'll push those 3 fingers even higher toward the underside of the backstrap, underside of the trigger guard rather. So that's a really cool feature, right? So that actually is not something that's talked about or noticed very much, but it just really helps cinch your hand up tight on the gun, and you feel like you just have tremendous control over the gun that way. The last thing to mention, again, this was in the bucket of not necessarily recoil control, but pretty important, would be the backstrap system. So the gun does come with what we call our natural point of aim system. The idea being that most guns in the market are going to have a small, medium, and large, right? That's kind of always what the conversation has been. We think that really it's about how the gun points. And so we've done some other videos explaining this, but the idea is you can actually change the angle on the back of the grip to orient the bore in a more natural point for you. So let's say you've been shooting 1911s for years and years, you might pick up one of the modern polymer Wonder 9s and index on a target, and your muzzle's pointed up at the ceiling, right? And it just comes down to how that backstrap is shaped. So for the 1911 guy in you, we've got the flat backstrap if you wanted to shoot that. But the backstraps aren't changing the size of the gun per se. They're changing the orientation of the bore so that you can find something that's it puts the front sight right where you want it as soon as you come up with the gun. All right. So that's an important feature as well. Hey, quick side note on the backstrap. Okay. If you want to take the backstrap off, it's the little tiny pin. That's the baby pin right there, not this pin. That's the trigger housing pin, okay? It's in the manual, but we get a lot of guns that come back with people have taken out the wrong pin. This is the backstrap pin. That's what you remove if you want to swap out the backstraps, okay? All right, well, that's an overview of the frame and some of its recoil control features. I really appreciate, I didn't write Magwell in there. I gotta clean this up. Magwell and Beavertail. Oh, backstrap, that's it. There you go. There, now the list is complete. Texture, recoil control edge, undercuts, Beavertail, slide release curtain, Magwell backstrap. Those are some of the frame features that are gonna help you be a better shooter with the Shadow Systems pistol. Thanks so much, guys.